Good afternoon from the KUOW newsroom. This is Seattle Now. I'm Paige Browning. We're hearing directly from Spokane tonight on the fire situation and eventually recovery. That's in a few minutes on the show. First, here are today's top stories. It's Tuesday, August 4th. Starting with arson. That's believed to be the cause of the most destructive of the fires in Spokane. The man accused of starting the fire that burned hundreds of structures there appeared in court today so a judge could determine release conditions for the 37-year-old. Northwest Public Broadcasting's Anna King has this update.
He was arrested Monday by investigators who found a lighter and waterproof matches in his possession. The Spokane Sheriff's Office said a witness saw him crouching in the grass near where the Old Trails fire started. That was the first of 3 fires that started on Saturday, burning through neighborhoods in Spokane. At the court hearing, the Honorable Judge Tony Hazel read the release conditions.
With respect to the release conditions, the court will adopt the $1 million bond that's already in place and adopt all the proposed release conditions as suggested by the prosecution.
In Spokane, Washington, I'm Anna King.
Meanwhile, officials are reiterating their calls for the public to keep drones out of wildfire zones. They say when unauthorized drones enter the affected airspace, firefighting aircraft have to stop flying. The latest incident last night forced fire bosses to suspend all airborne operations for about a half hour in Spokane. The federal government has granted an emergency declaration for the devastating wildfires burning across Washington state. Governor Bob Ferguson requested the help for 6 counties and 3 tribal nations. Ferguson says the state has a range of immediate needs.
Medical supplies and assistance, temporary sheltering, emergency power. So, for example, generators. Those are the types of direct assistance that we're requesting from the federal government for those jurisdictions and those tribes.
Everything the state requested was granted by the feds, with the exception of debris removal. Besides the 3 wildfires in Spokane, the other primary concerns statewide are the Kaiser Canyon fire, which is more than 136,000 acres and 46% contained today, and the Little Giant fire burning on 59,000 acres, that's 0% contained. We're feeling the fire effects here now. Air quality has dropped to moderate all throughout the I-5 corridor from Everett south to Tacoma. Readings are worse in some areas. It's currently rated as unhealthy for all people in North Bend, Darrington, and Enumclaw. Seattle's worst reading this afternoon was an 86 AQI in the Bitter Lake neighborhood. At 100 AQI, the rating jumps to unhealthy for sensitive groups, which is the case in Issaquah. It's much worse in central and eastern Washington. Wenatchee's rating this afternoon was 502, which is hazardous for anyone to breathe. Happy election night to you. It is primary election day in Washington state, and voters, you've got until 8 o'clock tonight to get your ballot in a secure drop box. Elections officials are urging you to use the drop boxes at this point instead of the mail to guarantee your ballot will arrive on time. Check back in with us tomorrow morning and we'll report the top line results. It's also a really busy night and week for summertime activities like swimming and boating, and that brings us the latest from public health officials. It's a grim update. Halfway through summer, preliminary data shows 14 people have died by drowning this year. Back in 2018, the county saw 16 deaths all year. Gurman Carr is with the Violence and Injury Prevention Unit at Public Health, Seattle and King County.
We always share messaging around children wearing life jacket, but we also want to highlight that everyone should be wearing a life jacket and really taking some safety precautions when you're around water. Even the strongest swimmers are at risk of drowning.
Carr says many drowning victims had alcohol or drugs in their system. She says to be aware that even if it's hot, water can be very cold and send your body into shock. A couple business notes tonight. Seattle-based Zillow is laying off more than 500 people, according to GeekWire. The real estate company says the layoffs are about getting more efficient. The cuts make up about 7% of their total workforce. GeekWire reports that in a conference this spring, the CEO said employees were being retrained to use AI in their jobs. And Washington state is seeking to block a new round of Trump administration tariffs. Attorney General Nick Brown has joined a coalition of other state AGs suing over the administration's new tariffs on more than 80 countries. They say the 10% tax will apply to nearly all U.S. imports and be passed on to consumers. Brown says tariffs have a big impact in Washington. 40% of jobs are tied to international trade. Our feature story today. It doesn't seem real. That's how one resident put it after fires swept through Spokane County. Since Saturday, 16 square miles burned. An estimated 67,000 people evacuated. 700 structures, including homes, damaged or destroyed. To learn more, Kim Malcolm spoke with Spokane Public Radio's news director, Doug Nadvornik.
Okay, so let's talk about the reports of the people who are unaccounted for. Do you have any updates on that?
The Spokane County Sheriff's Department, yesterday, the sheriff said, he was asked, are there people that you still know are maybe missing or unaccounted for? And he said, we had nearly 300 people call into 911 on Saturday and reported that maybe they had somebody they weren't able to get a hold of. And apparently the Sheriff's Department has been making lots of calls over the last couple of days. Yesterday, Sheriff John Knowles said, we know of 14 people that we got calls on for 911 who we haven't been able to get a call from. And the sheriff basically said, I don't want this to say that we have 14 missing people. We just haven't been able to get a hold of them. Well, today, the sheriff's office says they have now been able to get a hold of those 14 people. So as far as we know, there are no people who are unaccounted for.
All right, good news. Doug, what's been happening today in the efforts to fight and to try to contain these fires?
The weather is better, and so they're going to some of the spots that are probably the hottest spots. The one thing I note is that the evacuation levels, especially the ones that are in closest in Spokane, kind of the northwest part of Spokane, have been lowered from the level 3 evacuation or the go now evacuation level to the level 2, which is kind of be aware of your surroundings sort of thing.
Doug, this all happened so fast. What have you heard from people about how prepared they were?
Well, I guess all I have to do is go to my own family. I live 3 blocks away from one of the evacuation levels, and my daughter's 1.5 miles from us is a few blocks away too. Just by hearing my daughter and my wife talking about, oh crap, what do we need to be taking? What do we need to be grabbing and putting in our car and getting out of here? And I have to think that so many people who live in the city of Spokane who never thought that they were going to be subject to this. You know, we've seen the pictures of the California wildfires and people talking about, oh, we never knew what we had to take. Well, now for the first time, they were confronted with this notion of, what do we take? Do we take this? Do we take that? Do we take our pictures and all that? And so I think that for Spokane, it was the first real indication, at least the folks within the city of Spokane, that we are vulnerable to this, and we really need to be thinking about it. 3 years ago, Spokane had 2 fires that burned in the summer pretty much at the same time. One was in Medical Lake to the west of Spokane, and one was in Chattaroy to the northeast of Spokane. And in both cases, several hundred houses burned. But folks in the middle of the city have never felt like they had to deal with this, and now we do.
Yeah. What kind of support have the state and federal governments made available to residents in Spokane and city leaders there?
So we have learned this morning, Governor Ferguson has been talking for a couple of days about filing a disaster declaration with the federal government, with the Federal Emergency Management Agency. That was granted this morning. There's the question then of how does that trickle down? Does it trickle down through the state? Does it come directly to the county? And so I guess that mechanism is on the way. But I guess I would say that the community itself has done a pretty good job of wrapping its arms around these people. There are all kinds of people who are figuring out, how can we get through this? The community is raising money for them. It's not going to be nearly enough. But in 3 days, it just shows that the Spokane community does a pretty good job of taking care of its own.
Doug, we're so grateful for you and the whole team there working so hard to keep people informed. Thank you so much for everything you're doing, and we send you all the best.
Thank you, Kim. I appreciate it.
Spokane Public Radio News Director Doug Nadvornik.
Next time on Seattle Now, the bar exam was canceled last week due to tech issues. That's left Washington law grads in limbo.
Bar exam preparation is like what an athlete does to prepare for the Olympics. You pause the rest of your life and focus all of your efforts, a huge amount of your financial resources and energy for months.
We'll speak with Seattle U's law school dean, who argues they shouldn't have to retake the exam. More about that Wednesday morning. That's all for today from the KUOW newsroom in Seattle. Our producer is Andy Hurst. The interview in today's episode was produced by John O'Brien. I'm Paige Browning. Seattle Now and KUOW are members of the NPR network. Thanks for listening. See you later.